Who would we be if the world never gave us a label? Would it still be us versus them? Would we be united as one? There is only you, one amongst the many, one of the whole, one made of love, to love and be you without the label. We're all human. Let's just love each other.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.
Hey guys, this is Doug Cartwright, founder of The Daily Shifts and author of the #1 bestseller, Holy Shit, We're Alive. I'm here with Ruben today, and we are talking about how to diagnose and heal our personal stories. So welcome to Live Through Love.
Doug, holy shit, we're alive.
Can you believe it?
I totally believe it. I mean, saying it, when you handed this to me, I'm like, I love that. Holy shit, we're alive. We are alive. And the older I get, the more my mortality becomes real. And I've noticed, like in my 20s, I'd go snowboarding right off a cliff. It didn't matter. I would almost do anything. Yeah. Now it's like my physical limits are the gym, and I go really hard at the gym, CrossFit style training, but I don't go pick up basketball anymore. I'm not trying to blow out an Achilles or.
I'm feeling that too. Yeah. I used to be a big CrossFit guy and actually herniated a disc. And so if I play basketball, I'm like, can't walk for 4 days. And so
right.
It's no good. I think it reminds me of that quote from Naval where he says, every man has two lives. And the second one begins when he realizes he only has one.
Wow. Because especially my early 20s, even before that, you're invincible, especially as dudes, right? Nothing can hurt us. Nothing's going to get in our way. We are superheroes. Like, that's not going to affect me. It's not going to be me. It's not going to be me. But look at us. And you figure that out. That quote, spot on. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. What was your moment where it hit where like that reality came face to face when you weren't invincible?
I mean, there's a few times, but in my early 20s in business, we went through real estate. There was this whole real estate boom that happened, and I got to ride a wave that, we thought was never ending.
When it's up, you never think it's going to end.
You never thought it was going to, it was easy. You fog a mirror, you can finance someone, people are buying houses. It didn't matter. And you're doing good work. It's just, you're doing good work and you thought it was the right thing to do. And you're just cashing in all this money and you're like, you know what? This is cool. Let me go get this Escalade, put 26-inch rims, Malibu wake setter, bikes, houses, you name it. Like Vegas every other weekend. And then 2008 hits.
Boom.
You're like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
That was a business life that was a real reality check.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those reality checks are tough. I mean, very similar story. I made my money differently. My first moment where I hit the wall where I'm like, oh, I'm not invincible was actually when my dad got diagnosed with cancer. Because you're like, that'll never happen to me. My dad was 53 years old. And one day he comes home and he's diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Damn. And as a 19-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid, you're like, whoa, what? Like, are you really going to die? Like, you're not actually really going to die. You'll overcome it. You'll be fine. And then 13 months later, passes away. And those are those moments where you're like, wait, I'm not invincible. And even though I didn't have a massive injury or whatnot, you think you're invincible, but you have those moments where I never thought this would happen to me. Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating is what I've realized, what ended up happening to me, and I'm sure you resonate with this too, is that was such a emotional experience of grief and sorrow and loss and despair. But growing up in our society, I was the tough football player, captain of the football team, and I need to be strong. And I have this very distinct memory. It's like the night before my dad passes away, and he has in-home hospice care. He's unconscious in the bedroom. It's like, we know this is over. And my mother is consoling me, and we kind of have this moment with me and my mom. I grew up in a family with 6 other siblings. We grew up Mormon. It's a whole other conversation with that religious upbringing. And so everyone had kind of gone to bed, and it's kind of just me and my mom. And we have this moment, like one of these really special moments to connect as we're like mourning the loss of our dad. And she puts her arm around me to like give me some love. And I remember this overwhelming, undescribable, pulsating emotion of fear and sadness just overwhelmed me. And I started sobbing uncontrollably, all for about 4 seconds, because my mind immediately tried to override my emotions, right? We feel these emotions and we override it with our mind. We try and think our way out of it. And it was like, I need to be the tough guy. I need to be strong for my mom. Don't cry. And I immediately just took all those emotions and just shoveled them back in. And they just festered there for a long time. And I didn't want to feel that uncomfortable emotion. So I distracted myself. And you made your money in real estate. And I thought, okay, I need to go. Maybe if I go make money, this emotion will go away, right? I'm once again trying to logically think my way out of my emotions, right? So I got really obsessed with commission sales and door-to-door sales and saw the commission structure there. So in 2011, I went all in on the sales business and recruited people and built teams and managed, did trainings. And, you know, same with you. At the time I was 24, I'd made $1 million, hoping that that money would solve the problem of sadness and grief and despair of the loss of my father. And as you know, I mean, different situations, but it doesn't solve the problem.
No. Why is it that as men, right, we're like, let's go make money so we could buy things and we won't feel these things anymore, because these things will excite us and make us feel other things. Right. It's like, I wasn't running. I haven't had a parent pass. I had a friend in his early 40s pass away from colon cancer. So I've seen those effects on a family. This was the first person that's passed in my life where I felt that, you know, but now I was on the other side of who I am and what I'm doing now. So I can't imagine what you were feeling at the time. But when I was running away from things, it was like, am I not good enough? What's self-love? What are people going to think of? Or you're only measured by your success and what you can show on the outside world. But what I never realized what I was running away from.
Yeah. And I've realized we all kind of have a story that we believe that usually, you know, something happened in our childhood, some traumatic event. And trauma is a really loaded word because, especially as men, we hear the word trauma and we think it's like this really intense experience where I was molested or raped, and it's this really big deal. And so we tend to undervalue our own trauma because it wasn't this magnificent event, right? But what I've realized as I've gotten older and as I start to work, I work with people one-on-one now, and we all have had a traumatic experience. And it usually starts when we were a kid. Something happens, and the story we tell ourselves in our head is we're not enough. Something's wrong with me, and I'm not enough now because. And then, you know, as children, we seek love and appreciation and validation. So we overcompensate and try and figure out how to gain that love and mask that and hide it. Right. And so for me, my story was I'm the fat kid and therefore I don't deserve love. Right. And now I have to prove to you why I'm valuable and achieve these things. And so I'm curious to know for you, what would you say your story was?
You know, there's a few, and I want to go into this because, you know, my parents loved me. They showed me care. They showed me all this. I didn't come from an abusive home. You're like, well, I wasn't molested or I wasn't this or I wasn't that, kidnapped, whatever the situation is. But there's like moments in my life. I remember as a kid, I used to quote unquote overshare and I was told not to overshare. So all of a sudden I just didn't share. And then I took that into, well, you didn't ask me the right questions. So I didn't say anything. Or I just wouldn't talk about things and I would start keeping things internalized. And I don't know if that was one of the moments of like, I got sat down and told you're sharing too much or you don't say these things outside of the home or whatever. Not that it was bad or good or indifferent, but as a kid, then you're like, oh, okay, let me program myself that way now. So that was one thing.
Do you have a specific memory?
That is one specific memory.
Yeah, like a vague, like kind of this moment at this time when my wife said, or my mom said this specific thing.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember myself sitting down. I don't remember what I was sharing, but I remember that happened. And I didn't think I did anything wrong, but all of a sudden it's like, oh, if I share things, it's wrong. And another thing was I'm the oldest. I have a younger brother, 2.5 years younger than me. And I always had to be the example. Everything was put on my shoulders. So I think some of that, what's it going to look like? You have to succeed. You have to show up this way, was part of this. That's like, am I good enough? Am I worthy? And it's funny because if you look at all this, I went to private school. We had a good life. We had things. I'm a 3-sport athlete. We did weekend things. We traveled, but it doesn't mean something didn't happen to us.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's too, is that there's, we tend to downgrade our trauma, or we don't realize the effect it had on us. But in some cases too, and I resonate with you a lot on this, is that we have positive trauma. And that's kind of a unique word. But for example, like my parents were from my perception of it, right? From how I believe, how I took it, was they had a beautiful, loving, supportive marriage. And I came from a very safe home where mom and dad support each other and respect each other, and they respected us as kids. And we went on our vacations and we had money, and everything like looked, from my angle, very good and loving. And my parents were totally in love and romantic and went on date nights and kissed each other in public. And so to me, that's positive trauma though, because in my life, I thought that's what marriage was like. And so in my early 20s, as I was dating and exploring relationships, if I got in a disagreement, I'd be like, oh, she's not the one. Right. One fight. She's not the one. I've seen what marriage is supposed to be like, right? It's supposed to be some beautiful, incredible, the bar is so high. And so I was discarding relationships very fast, right? Because of this perception of what I thought it was supposed to be, due to a very beautiful influence on me. Right. And so the point I'm trying to make is that we are so affected by our upbringing, and our trauma is valid. And the beliefs and the stories that we have are real, and they do affect the way we show up in the world. And it does stop us from living a more beautiful life full of love and enthusiasm and connection. And once we can really diagnose these stories and heal them, then we can move into the next layer. But until then, what most people do, and it seems like we both fell into this trap of, I'm not enough, so let me go achieve, let me go earn, let me go buy the boat and the car and the trips. And hopefully this will solve the inner problem. Yeah. And we both know how that ends.
We do. Yeah. And here we are. But, it's a beautiful thing. It's positive trauma. I haven't even thought about that, but applying that, I can relate to some of that, but also let's make it a little more superficial and say, like, looking at romantic comedy movies all the time, people start thinking that that's a relationship and that's a love life. That can start programming different things. So you see people that are, I don't have that, or I don't have that, or your relationship's perfect, or this. Like my wife and I all the time say, no, we do the work. It's not easy, Yeah.
What is the work to you?
Well, right. We have a son now. So he's 1. He just turned 1. And our whole thing is we want to be our best selves. So we don't, as best as we can, this is our intention. We don't transfer anything to our child, because that's what happens. And we're trying to work out our bad habits and our traumas and our things through therapy or through conversation, or they're just trying to be better and talking to each other so that we could be the best people as an example for our child to look up to. Because we know they're just taking it all in.
Yeah, what's crazy is I think no matter, and obviously I don't have a child, so it's a different perspective, but I think we can try as hard as we want, but we're going to mess up our kids.
Of course.
There's no way around it, right?
We're doing the best we can.
We're doing the best you can.
We don't come with instructions.
Yeah.
And I tell my mom all the time, like, what you did was fine. It is what it is. Like, we're here. It's fine. Parents, brothers, whatever. It doesn't mean that you broke us. But it's our responsibility to fix ourselves. And that's for everyone. Parents, grandparents, children, and just ourselves and our friends and everything.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point you make there is to take on, the first step of doing the healing work is taking the responsibility, right? Because how many people do you know hold grudges against friends and family members and parents for so long?
Mm-hmm.
And they hold on to this spite. And as long as you're holding on to that, you can't really move forward. And so I think taking responsibility for that and realizing your healing's on your own,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not responsible for the upbringing you were brought in, but you are responsible in healing it.
Yep.
Right. And I think the first way to kind of move through that is diagnose your stories, right? Diagnose, why do you feel like you're not enough? What are you trying to hide from the world?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would you be, freaked out if the world found out about you? Is it a substance abuse issue or alcoholism, or you're too fat or too skinny or too tall or too short, or your eyes are too close together, whatever it may be? Are you not smart enough? And then ask yourself, where did I learn this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because majority of time, the stories that we take on, for example, in your situation, don't speak up, right? Keep it to yourself. That was your story that you took on. But almost 100% of the time, the stories we take on are projections of other people's stories, right? And you said it was your mother who said that to you, right? So in some situation, your mother learned not to speak up, right? And that was her worldview. And then she then passed that on to you, right? This is generational trauma we're talking, right? And so you then took on someone else's story. And so not only is that true for you, it's true for all of us in so many situations. For example, when I was in second grade, and it's crazy, I still have this memory. Think of all the moments in my life that have happened since second grade, so many, and I have this distinct memory. I was in second grade. I was definitely pudgy, fat kid, right? A little chubby. But when you're in second grade, you're not self-aware, you're not self-conscious, you're just out having fun. And one day at recess, I was wearing a very specific brand of athletic shorts. And on the front corner of the shorts, it actually says what size it is. So there's like a big S for small, or M or XL. And a fifth grader was wearing the same brand of shorts, and he was really scrawny. And he pointed out, him being much older, mature fifth grader, and me being a second grader, that I was wearing an extra large and he was wearing a medium. And he's like, wait, you're in second grade. You're 3 grades younger than me, and you're wearing an extra large. You're a fatty. You're just a fatty boy, And he was really small and scrawny. And I remember in that moment, that was the first memory I have of like, whoa, like something's wrong with me. I don't fit in. And because I'm the fat kid, I don't belong. And now I have to overcompensate, and come up with other ways to fit in. And so these are the tools we're talking about. Like, how do you do the work? It's covering these stories. And so I would say anyone listening to this is think of your story. Right? What are you trying to hide? What do you think is wrong with you? And then ask yourself, where did you learn that? Right? And you think of that memory. And then in this situation specifically, this kid called me fat. And I don't know if this is true or not, but it would make sense. He was really small and scrawny. How might he have been feeling? Right? All these other kids in my grade have outgrown, and I'm feeling petite and weak. Right? So I'm going to project my insecurity onto this kid and tease him. Right. So once again, not my story. And that story stuck with me for 27 years. And healing that, obviously a work in progress. Right. And on that as well, I do want to touch on this is, doing this work, you'll uncover deeper layers. Right. You kind of have like your first story, then you go deeper and deeper and deeper. When I had made a lot of money, and I'm sure you fell victim to this as well, is I fell victim to what I term the success void, right? I'm sure when you were in your prime time, you could have given me a resume of your life and be like, oh, this guy, Ruben, he's the man. He's going to Vegas. He's got the girls. He's got the Escalades. He's got the trips. There's that void, that deep void. And I fell into that when I was, 26, 27 specifically. And I never made like ball or jet money, but I was doing very, very well. And I remember having this moment when I was 26, 27 of hitting this kind of scary point in my life, because the advice I was getting from my mentors, because I was feeling stuck, their advice was go make more money. And I'm like, I don't think an extra 250 grand is going to do that much. I have everything I want. Yeah. And, I share the full story in the book, but for the sake of time, I'll cut some out. a lot of weird things started happening in my life, because what I was thinking, I'm like, okay, the Mormon church thing isn't working for me. I'd left the Mormon church. I don't feel any fulfillment in my job. I haven't dealt with the death of my father. So I was feeling lost. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to give this spirituality thing a shot. We'll see what's here. And so I kind of like took it as a grain of salt, and I started getting into yoga and meditation. And just as I was deep diving into these topics, I came across psychedelics. And being raised in Utah as a conservative white male Mormon boy, you're kind of taught that all substances are basically meth. And if you do it one time, you'll be addicted for life and you'll die. And that's like the story.
Yeah.
So don't touch anything, right? You'll die if you do anything once. And as I started reading these research papers and the scientific studies, especially from Johns Hopkins and Cal, I was like blown away at these studies in regards to anxiety and depression and healing trauma. And within weeks of really looking into these studies, I had the opportunity to go have an experience. And so I do my initial experience, and that first experience really just blew the doors off of everything and what I believed was possible in relationship with God and whatnot. And after that experience, I was so curious that it eventually led me to go work with other plant medicines, where I went and did my first traditional ayahuasca ceremony. And I wanted to share this real story because I think there's a lot of value here in regards to our stories. But I have this experience in ayahuasca, and I remember it was actually night 2. First night was really beautiful. And then night 2, I drink the tea, and I start getting these flashbacks when I was a kid, when I was 6 years old at my friend's house. And what happened was he would take me into the back room and he would sexually abuse me. And this definitely did happen. And I remember these memories flashing back into my mind. And I remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought of this in like 20 years. Why am I thinking about this? I'm here to do ayahuasca. I'm not here to think of these weird things. Like, why is this memory here? Like almost like get out of the way because I'm here to do ayahuasca.
Yeah.
And I was like fighting it. And I'm like, oh wait, this is why you do ayahuasca.
This is why I'm here.
This is why I'm here. So I'm like, okay, so I surrender into it and I relive these experiences that were really intense. And I have this opportunity to work with the medicine and just say, why did this happen? And kind of show me the effects of this. And growing up, especially in junior high, high school, and college, I had a lot of platonic girlfriends, just girl space friends. And I would get teased every now and then by like my guy friends. I mean, I had my boys for sure. I was on the football team and whatnot, but every now and then they'd be like, dude, Doug, why do you have so many girlfriends? Like, it's kind of weird. And I have a twin sister growing up. And I always kind of thought it was because I had a twin sister growing up. So I'm kind of used to feminine energy. So I was just like, yeah, I guess I just have girls in my family. I don't know. And what it showed me was that in this experience, I created a story that men aren't safe, because my best friend, who was older than me, was molesting me. And I was so confused and I didn't know what was going on. And it wasn't this malicious act. He was just curious. And what's really sad is I remember when he was, when we were in junior high together, I was 14 and he was 16. He actually got into a car accident and passed away. And what's so devastating is when I heard that news, my first reaction was a sense of relief. So I'm like, oh, now no one will ever know. That secret is gone to the grave. Now no one will ever know what happened.
Yeah.
And so I'm working with the medicine. I'm like, how is this showing up into my life? And it said, you created a story when you were 6 years old that men aren't safe. And it showed me throughout my life how difficult it had been for me to make male friends. Because when I'd meet someone, I had a very big wall up because like, I don't know you. I don't know your intentions. And I would keep them at arm's length distance. And it showed me how even in memories, if I met a new guy in a friend setting, I would always make a comment of some pretty girl that I was dating. And really subconsciously, what I'm trying to say to them is like, hey, like, don't come on to me. And how for almost 25 years of my life, I missed out on potential new, great, inspiring friendships because I had this story stored from such a long time ago that men aren't safe. And that was one of the most, probably the most freeing realizations that I have ever had. And then working with therapist afterwards to integrate it, you know, it's like, wow, it's actually normal to have male friends. And it's like, it's a huge blessing into my life, and we're supposed to, and actually have the romantic relationship that I want with my future wife and kids is actually necessary that I have strong male friends. Yeah. And so, you know, going back to the story thing, it's like, yeah, we have that first kind of story. I'm the fat kid. Right. And as you continue to do the work and go deeper and deeper, you can get into these really heavy conversations of, you know, men aren't safe. Right. And there's always work to do. And so I would just say anyone listening, just like really encourage people to start diving in and doing their story work.
It's like the example they give, it's an onion. It truly is an onion, and you peel the layer. There's the brown layer on the outside. That's someone called me something and I believed that for the longest time. Then you peel that away and it's like, oh, that wasn't it. That's just shielding it. Oh, this time I was sat down and saying I should never share whatever.
Don't speak up.
That's not it. What else is in there? Who knows what else is in there? You have to be the prime example and be perfect. And every time you showed up, you disappointed people. So that's a little deeper. Okay, so what else is in there? Who knows? Maybe I need to go to ayahuasca.
Yeah.
I haven't done it yet.
Yeah, no, I think it'll call you when you're ready. Yeah. You'll definitely know. And then this isn't a plug for ayahuasca. There's lots of other ways to do the work. You know, that was just the modality I used.
No, I know. I've heard a lot of good things about it. Spoke with people, been invited to like private shamans and making sure it's the right shaman.
Yeah. A lot goes into it.
Yeah.
And I would just say too, it's also relieving to know that you never peel all the layers of the onion. There'll always be a layer to peel. And when I first got into, and I think you see this too in the personal development space too, is people have a massive breakthrough, right? They heal one of their stories. They move one of these massive blockages. And so they get really, really excited, and rightfully so. And so they then go on this quest of personal development, and it's the next retreat and it's the next ceremony. And they're trying to like accomplish all of it and get all the layers of the onion. And I fell victim to that as well, thinking there's like an ending spot, like a finish line, and then everything will be good. As soon as I do all this work, then life will begin and life will be good. But it's relieving and freeing in a sense to realize that you never get there. Like you're never going to feel everything. So how can you enjoy your human experience now while doing the work and realize you are worthy of love today, exactly how you are in every aspect. And be optimistic of a brighter, more loving future. And can you share what you're doing? Share your art, share your creation, and help others along the way. And it really is the Ram Dass quote. Like we really are all just walking each other home. Yeah.
I love that. But it's always things like what you're saying is like we're chasing the high, right? That next, I just finished this book. There goes that layer. There's a flower in the middle. But realizing a little bit deeper from that generational trauma, and then trauma that's in our DNA.
Right.
That's like just genetically written inside of us. Like we're never going to be able to really unpack all of that. So that's why doing the work now and really looking at it is like, well, how can I move forward on the other side of the onion, not create more layers, but move forward and continue going that way, taking responsibility, sharing and being the best I can possibly be, knowing that, hey, I'm going to hit a peak and I'm going to hit a valley and I'm going to fall and I'm going to be in the corner depressed one day, but getting out of it quicker and moving forward.
Yeah, you nailed it. I think the biggest takeaway of once you really learn the tools and techniques to, move through these emotions, meditation, yoga, mindfulness, whatever, art, whatever your modality is you nailed it. The intensity of the unpleasant emotion softens and the length of it diminishes. Right. And so before, what would really tip you off and you'd feel really frustrated, it might last 3 or 4 days, is now, you feel pretty frustrated and it's 30 minutes.
Yep.
And it subsides.
Yep.
Right. Because there's no way of passing through these emotions. They're there. And I like to say we don't have good and bad emotions. We have pleasant emotions and unpleasant emotions, right? Because the moment you start labeling an emotion as good or bad, then, like we said, we try and avoid our emotions by going to our mind. We try and think our way out of our emotions.
We try to create meaning behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. I've never really thought about what's good and what's bad. I just look at it. We've got to feel, and they say, feel into it.
Mm-hmm.
What are you feeling now? Well, like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't like what I'm feeling. But instead of not liking it, say, okay, but what's it triggering, or what can you do to get out of that feeling?
Yeah. One thing that I love is a tool called the 90-second rule. And the 90-second rule basically states if you fully embody an unpleasant emotion for 90 seconds without fighting it, without resisting it, without trying to push it away, let it come. It's knocking on the door. In the past, you lock the door, turn off the lights, turn on the alarm system, and go hide in the closet. Try and avoid it.
I hide it. I feel the physical pain hiding it here sometimes.
Yeah. It's not comfortable. Mm-hmm. But for 90 seconds, if you can let the emotion in, open the door, invite it in, and just let it fully embody you. Scientifically, it says within 90 seconds, that emotion will subside.
I'm going to try that.
90-second rule, right? And so that's one thing that I love to do, where it's like, I'm starting to feel a little angsty right now. Where is this coming from? Rather than trying to think my way out of it and avoid it. 90 seconds, really embody it. And you said it exactly right. It'll move through.
I'm definitely going to practice that. So this has been awesome. We've got your book. I can't wait to dive into it. Thank you so much for it.
Yeah.
Takeaway, wrap this all up. If I say, Doug, how do you live through love, or how do you define the practice of living through love? In your words, what would that be?
I would say you live through love by letting go of expectation, letting go of what you think life is supposed to be. We have this idea of what we think love is. Mm-hmm. And if we can surrender to the universe's plan, loosen the reins, I say, of life and fall into it, that's where the beauty is and the magic is.
Perfect.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.